Hello, 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 everybody. Let me know if you can hear me. We've had some technical difficulties today. Actually, started last night. Hopefully we can hear. Carl says, guess that Sony camera is overheating before the stream. No, it actually was not overheating. It was not an overheating problem. Apparently I hit the desk. I did something and one of the cables came loose. I don't know. Let's see. Okay. They say they can hear me. I'm still very stuffed up. I feel fine. It's just a congestion issue at this point. And so yeah, we had the camera problem. And then last night I was working. I was doing the refactoring of the card framework in automatic CSS, which I got to tell you guys, this new color scheme functionality with the light dark functions and the way it's all set, like it simplifies everything. And so the card framework is getting way simpler, way more automatic, and easier to configure. The icon framework is going to get the same refactor. We've already done it with the form styling. It's just really, it's super flexible. Not only is it simpler, it's way lighter in terms of code and inputs and all this other stuff. And usually what comes with simplification like that is you also lose flexibility. We're actually gaining flexibility, I would say. So it's just really awesome. But while I was working on that, my monitor, I have two monitors, I'm sure everybody knows. It's like two 32-inch monitors, right? One of them just went out. It just like went black, and I was like, what is going on? And I couldn't figure out, like the power's on, but it won't connect to the Mac. And I kind of traced it back and I compared it to my other monitor, and the other monitor, the USB-C, which by the way, I don't like USB-C. Is anybody else on the, I don't like USB-C that much. I don't think it's that fantastic. And I always feel like, and it's happened on this monitor, it just is prone to issues. And so I'm on the back and I'm like, man, this USB-C port's really wiggly. And then I check the other one, not wiggly. I just feel like it's just some connection issue inside the monitor. I think it's just dead. I think it's just a done deal. So I had to grab one of my 27 inches from over there and put it back in place so I can have two monitors again. Stuff falling off my desk. Oh, we're a mess today. I'm scrambling. We got the pool inspector, because the pool's done now. The pool inspector was just here. So I'm like, dude, I gotta get on a live show. Like, we can't have this conversation right now. I'm running around trying to get everything ready to go. Too many things happening at once, okay? L take on USB-C. Yeah, they're fragile. Do we not think that we could be better than USB? Like, I like the universality. I like everything on the same thing. That's not what I'm saying. I like that part of it. I just think USB-C itself is not that fantastic. I mean, this may be the worst take of all time. I don't know. But I love MagSafe. I don't know, like, I feel like that could do everything. Why not? And then it's very durable. It's very durable. They can make it a little stronger, maybe. I don't know, but that's where I'm at. Well, you should just MagSafe everything. Screw it. Okay, let's go ahead and jump into the live stream. I think I have Mateo with me. He might be muted, I'm not sure. But Mateo, say hi if you can hear. I think I can add him in too. There he is.
Let me in.
Oh, hold on. I've got to switch my headphones. Okay, let's do that. All right, there we go. Okay, so we got Mateo in the house if we need him. And yeah, let's go ahead and dive in. I think I'm going to start today with some testimonials. Because we're at the point now where testimonials are starting to flow in on a regular basis. And I've got a few that I thought were pretty awesome that came in as of late. So I'm going to try to remember to share my screen this time. When I share my screen, what is it doing with my camera down there? Let's see. Solo. Okay, that makes sense. Screen, cam, back. Oh dear. Okay, back, camera, screen. That's really odd. Camera. There we go. Okay. But when I'm in Oh, jeez. This is, okay. Yeah, I'm just going to have to do it manually.
Now it's right.
Yeah, now it's right. I don't know. Okay. Getting the Stream Deck and the software all to be on the same page sometimes not super straightforward. Okay, so this would be the first one that we can go over. This was left, actually this came in like right before the stream started. But this is from Dave. I've been working on a new project exclusively in Etch for the past few weeks. This morning I had to work on one of my brick sites and I instantly realized an even greater appreciation for the Etch workflow. Hats off to the Etch team for knocking it out of the park. Brick's is a great tool, but it's obviously obvious that Etch is how it should be. The simple fact that you can't even start styling an element in Etch until you give it a class seems so simple, but it's the key to the whole thing in addition to the design of the UI that makes it so easy to add and edit classes. Not sure how difficult that decision was to make, but it was the correct one. Every day that I work in Etch, I feel like I have this new toy that I get to play with. But while I'm playing, I'm learning so much more than just hunting and pecking for switches to turn settings on and off. I'm enjoying my work so much more now. And this is like if you were to underline a theme that we see over and over and over again in the testimonials that we're getting, it's kind of this thing. It's like, it's so much more enjoyable, right? Like, yes, the features are there. Yes, it looks good. Yes, this, yes, that. But like, that shouldn't be understated. You know, how important it is to enjoy the work that you're doing and enjoy the environment that you are working in and not feel like you're fighting against it, not feel like it's in your way, not feel like it's click heavy and inception-y. And I'm glad that you know, people are coming to that conclusion and having that experience because we worked really hard on making sure that that was the feeling that you get. So that's a good one right there. Let's go ahead and close that out. Here's another one that was from a Facebook comment that somebody left. And look, this isn't, you know, just a lot of these mention bricks, okay? It is what it is because a lot of people came from that community. So you're just going to naturally get those comparisons. So this was in response to somebody who asked about, like, you know, should I start it in bricks or should I start it in Etch or whatever? I can't remember what the exact conversation was, but I thought this was interesting because what Zach did is as a test, they built the same site, their new site, right, in bricks and in Etch side by side to just see which one they wanted to go with. That was like how they were going to answer the question. And it says, we started building it with both bricks and Etch in parallel. We got 2 pages in and just dropped bricks as it was not even a competition anymore. So that was, you know, it's always good to hear that. It's always good to hear that. And then this one in particular was great because it talks about the styling panel. You know, a lot of people were worried about the removal of the styling panel. A lot of people were worried about what will we do? What will we do without the styling panels, you know? And so Jordan, can I zoom in on this? That's too much. Okay. I was one of the people who was genuinely concerned about the styling panel being removed. It's what I'd always known, and I knew that because I'd relied on it so heavily. My CSS knowledge wasn't great, so that scared me. I even went as far as thinking that maybe Etch wasn't going to be the builder for me. A lot of people I'm telling you, they got very, very, very worried about the removal of the style panel. But I accepted that this was the direction things were headed, and I decided to embrace it. I finally started rebuilding our agency website on Etch and decided to do it with the styling panel turned off. At first, it was slow, trying to remember the actual CSS properties instead of blindly filling in boxes because I knew what each section of the styling panel did, and that's all that mattered. But after a few sections, it clicked. I was flying. I could see the vision and absolutely loved it. I can make any changes I want from, by the way, this isn't even really talking about the mini GUI yet. This is just somebody who embraced the idea that like, maybe we should just try writing some CSS, right? So this is gonna get even easier, even faster with the mini GUI. Okay, so they can make any changes they want from a single panel. They can see every style applied to an element in one place without clicking through endless tabs and accordions. No more jumping between breakpoints, trying to remember what I'd done at each one. It's just simple and how it should be. Look at it, look, again, there's common themes, common things that people say unprompted where it's like, God, it's so good to hear that. Because it's like, this is how it should be. It's just another generalized feeling that we see over and over and over again. It's just how it should be, right? I'm 2 pages deep into the rebuild now, and I can honestly say that Etch has changed the game forever. I never want to use another builder or a styling panel ever again. I've seen a lot of comments on Facebook from people not accepting the removal of the styling panel or the direction Etch is heading, but as Kevin says, they're looking at it from the outside instead of actually trying it themselves. That's a very, very good point. There's a lot of people who will say negative things about Etch or our decisions in Etch. Guys, a lot of these people aren't even users. They've never opened it. They've never used it. They're just outside naysayers, right? So you have to be careful who you listen to. The people actually using the tool are people, they're the only people that matter. Everybody else is operating on assumptions and just generalized negativity. But honestly, as someone who went from being full on Elementor to bricks only last year, right? And now to Etch, the difference is night and day. I genuinely feel sorry for the people who aren't willing to have an open mind and experience it. So I appreciate those. If you are an Etch user and you have any testimonials that you want to send in, they are always extremely helpful. Obviously, we talk about how great Etch is, but people don't believe us because, we built it, right? They do believe you, though. They do believe actual testimonials. I will say you get bonus points if you send in a video testimonial. A lot of text-based testimonials are good. I like to hear them. I know that they're authentic, but again, if I publish text-based testimonials, not everybody just takes them at face value. Oh, well, yeah, he probably paid somebody for that, or blah, 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 blah. I mean, we don't. We don't even like hardcore ask for them. They just come in, and when they come in, it's nice. But again, they have limited utility in this day and age because so many companies do fake them. That if you have like video, and video, again, it's not foolproof, right? You can pay for video testimonials, but they are better than text-based testimonials. So if you want to get bonus points, just do a little selfie video and say your thing and send it on in. That would be fantastic. Okay. I think we're ready to talk about some of the new features. Let me pull up my... Oh, I want to give you guys a little sneak peek too. Well, let's do the new feature. It's a mini GUI related thing and kind of a CSS style sheet related thing that Tommy just sent over. So when we do the mini GUI part, I'll go ahead and pull that up. But let me go ahead. I've got too many windows now. Let me get... Oh, actually, I put my little list right here. Or it's not a lot. We're just going to look at 3 kind of major things that have happened since. A lot has happened, obviously, but there's only 3 that we're going to look at in this live stream, and then I want to dedicate the rest to kind of Q&A or simple little demos or whatever. Okay, so the first thing is the mini GUI, and the mini GUI, you're not gonna see it obviously until there is a selector. It's in the process of getting restyled. I will make a little comment right now. Some people see this as white blocks with light icons. If you see that, it's a color scheme issue. Because we release things as they become available, right? Everything is not completely done. We're in the middle of essentially converting all of the tokens that control the styling of the app over to light dark functions and color scheme so that you can have a dark editor and a light editor, whichever you prefer. And you will toggle that within Etch, okay? It's not gonna be completely based on your browser preferences. You toggle that within Etch. But it's not finished. It's not 100% released. So this part of it, the mini GUI, is already using the light dark functions, which means your browser or your operating system will take over and make them light or dark based on your preference. So if you see them light, which obviously is not a good experience right now, especially when the rest of the app is not light, then you can just temporarily set your browser to dark mode and it'll fix that. Okay, I just wanted to mention that. And I have to, got to get the water going today or the voice is probably not going to hold up. Okay, so this is the mini GUI. Big change that just came in the last update is that this is now context aware. So just to give you an idea of what the mini GUI does real quick, we can do display flex direction column by hitting the vertical arrow. Of course, this would be a row. Of course, this would be grid. You do get a little preview there of exactly what code is going to be added. I just did a whole live stream on this on the Geary Code channel. If you missed it, you might want to go back and watch that if you want all of the key details, right? But this is very intelligent. It doesn't just add snippets of code. It knows what code it added and can remove them as well, okay? So it can also switch from one to another because it understands the relationship between these various properties and their values. It is very soon going to have a right-click context menu. So for example, if I wanted a bunch of grid presets like grid 3 or auto grid or grid 4 or grid 6 or whatever, grid 2, 3, grid 3, 2, I could put those into an options list and say, hey, I want these to be my default options. And when I right click on here, so if I left click, I get whatever I want my default to be, okay? But if I right click, I would get all of the additional options that I want. I control the values. That's really, really important. So for like margin or padding or gap, let me do flex direction and then let's do a gap. So my preference is that it adds content gap by default with a fallback, okay? But if I wanted all my spacing gap values available to me, I would right click it. So if I left click it, I get my normal default. If I right click it, I get all my options. Then I click my option, it inserts that specific option. So it's very, very quick. It's very fast. Everything happens in one place. You see the code that is being written. You can touch the code that is being written. Everything is fantastic, right? If I notice here, when I did the flex, it added alignment. So there are other options that become available when you do a particular thing. So we're not stuffing everything up here. Like I don't need alignment buttons if I haven't done display flex, okay? So when I do display flex, it's intelligent enough to realize, hey, now you're gonna want alignment. So I can go center, center, like that, for example, okay? Nothing's happening on the page because I'm doing this to a section where nothing is gonna move because it's got a centered container in it. But if I did this, for example, I'm just putting random IDs on this, by the way. I'm not doing anything, BIM related yet, but I could put these in a row, I could center and I could center, right? This centering won't do anything until I have, some sort of minimum height set or whatnot, but I can now add some padding and I can come in here and add a background color, which defaulted to white, but I could easily change that to, whatever I want. So you could just do the value here. Again, you shouldn't have to really ever edit this because for the most part, you're either going to be using your default or you're going to be right clicking and then choosing a value from the options that you use for that project. So what we want to do is very much limit the amount of time you have to come in here and interact with these values. You shouldn't really, unless you're going to do something crazy like I want to calc it or something like that, it should just be available via clicks, right? That would be the ideal scenario. Now, the biggest thing about this is that now is cursor aware. Okay, so we know that styling panels have a hard time with media queries. We know that style panels have they're impossible. Nobody that I know of has made them work with container queries, right? But the mini GUI, even though it's literally like, 47 hours old, okay? That's kind of what it feels like. It's very young. It's very young. I don't know if that's accurate, but it's very young. It already works with all these things. It already works with all these things. So let me show you, for example. So we're gonna do add a media query. Now, when you add media queries in Etch, it's very important to understand, I'm right-clicking this little badge. This is gonna actually change in the very near future, that this is gonna be part of the mini GUI. So this won't be you doing this stuff up here anymore. There'll be a little @ and a little ampersand and stuff like that in the mini GUI, and it's gonna probably do it from here. But this is dynamic. So when I ask to add a media query, it's going to add the query based on the canvas size that I'm currently previewing at. So I'm gonna bring this in to 1,000. So my canvas is 1,000 pixels wide, which means if I add a media query here, it's going to add it based on 1,000 pixels, okay? I clicked it twice on accident. So if I come in here, you're gonna see it's predetermined, like that's what I was previewing. So that's the value that it's going to spit back. That's the value that it's going to give me. Now I can change that to anything I want, obviously, but it's very quick and intuitive in the sense that if I'm previewing 1,000, it seems like I wanna do something there. That's the value that it's gonna give me. It gives me that value in a function that we created called toRem, which converts that to a rem value on the front end, which is really ideally what you want. You don't want raw pixels in media queries or container queries, okay? So now here's where the magic really happens, right? When I go into here, notice the mini GUI has reset. If I'm in this group up here, anywhere in this group up here, it knows what I've added, and I can still remove or add back or whatever I want to do. But the minute I come into a nested item, a child or whatever, right? This is a nested media query, it resets and I can do new things here. So, okay, so here we're gonna do display flex, flex direction row, but in this media query, less than 1,000 pixels, we're gonna switch to a column, and look, that's exactly what it has done. And if I come in and I wanna set a new background color, for example, I've now set it to white, okay? And I come out, oh, it's red, now it's white, it's a row, now it's a column. And I'm doing all of this with the mini GUI, and I'm watching it happen right here on the page. And if I'm in here, it knows. If I want to remove that background color instruction, I remove it. It doesn't remove this one up here because that one's not part of this group that I happen to be working on at the time. And then if I want to come down here and I want to add yet another media query, now it's going to do it at 444, and I want to come in and I want to set a brand new background color like pink. Okay, now I'm pink, now I'm red. And I removed it from there as well. So let me put it back there. Let's do black. So I'm red, now I'm black, now I'm pink, okay? And I'm doing all of this with the mini GUI because it is now context aware. And yes, it will work exactly the same with container queries. And yes, it'll work exactly the same with pseudo elements, okay? And I won't even have to, very, very soon, I won't even have to write the before or the after or the hover or the whatever I'm doing. I'm just gonna click the buttons in the mini GUI. It's gonna create a before, it's gonna create an after, it's gonna put in the content property, it's gonna allow me to style with the mini GUI. Everything stays in one place. Everything stays nice and organized. It's how it should be, guys. It's how it should be, okay? So this works now context aware, which is just absolutely phenomenal. It is insanely flexible now, just like that, just like that. Now, I want to show you a little mock-up that Tommy gave me, a little update, because we were kind of deciding on the actual styling. Can I bring this? Okay, I'm gonna have to screenshot this. Oh wait, can I save it maybe? Let me save it. Save image. Okay, yeah, I can. Okay, let's do mini GUI 1. Okay, and I'm gonna save this one. Save image, mini GUI 2. This is probably the easiest way to do it. Okay, is everything fine with the stream too, Mateo? I'm getting messages in the background, but I don't know what they're related to.
I think so.
Okay.
I'm checking the messages on Discord.
Okay, here is a here's a mock-up of I think what it's about to change to, because I really think this is, can I put these kind of side, one above the other? There we go. Okay, so I like this because it feels way more native. It feels way more integrated, right? Now this black color that's on the background here actually would match the panel color if it wasn't using different tokens right now. So it would have matched and it would have looked a little bit more integrated and native. By the way, this is, fully custom engineered by our team. But I like this mock-up he sent me. How do I get to it quick? Don't close that. Okay, this is where, all right, come on. Let's go here. No, I don't want to turn on accessibility. That's a second one. Okay, ignore that for right now. Let's go to this one. Okay, thank you. All right, Mac's a little crazy with the windows sometimes. All right, so what do you guys vote for? I'm a big fan of this, where it's I will call it frameless, I guess, where it just kind of feels like it's natively there, part of the thing. Or we have the current style. So this will be B. This will be B right here. And then this will be, the way it is now will be A, okay? We can do a live vote. So just get on your keyboard. Do you like A or B? A is how it is now. B is right here. The frameless version is B. So you can throw in your votes here. Zach says he loves a new one. Good. Yeah, me too. I mean, it just feels way more native. It feels like it's supposed to be there. It doesn't feel like it's been tacked on to the area. Yeah. I think most votes are gonna be for B.
Yeah, seems like most people are B.
Yeah. Okay. Now let's look at the style sheets area real quick. Okay. So if you didn't know, we have global style sheets. You can go to the style manager. You can manage selectors. You can manage all of your variables, right? Custom variables. And you can manage style sheets. You can have more than one style sheet if you want to. Right now, it's very basic where you just throw in styles in a style sheet. You call it a day. You call it a day, right? But we want to make this area a little bit more robust. And this is where Tommy sent me a mini GUI 2 mock-up. We'll take a look at this together. I make it a little bit bigger. Okay. And so what you're seeing here is same thing, style sheets listed on the left. You're going to see your actual code. Look at the mini GUI now living. By the way, it is, if I put that CSS panel on a sidebar, it will go to vertical. And that's what it's going to do here in the style sheets area. And then you'll have a preview of exactly what you're doing on the right-hand side and the ability to maybe select a page that you actually want to preview. And this would give you a live instant preview of whatever's happening on your website. Dougster says A versus B is a big deal. A versus B should be selectable. I don't necessarily, I don't think I agree. There's too many things that people want to be selectable. And this is where we have to be very, very careful. You actually have to be more careful with what is selectable versus the other way. Because yes, it gives more preference to the user, but you end up with an app. And remember, there's so much stuff. You know how many things people want to be like, oh, it should be user selectable. If we literally did that for all the things people requested that it should be user selectable, we would have 1,000 switches. And that is the cost. That is the cost of making these kinds of things user selectable. You end up with an interface where you got to go in and configure 1,000 switches. And we know that is not a good experience. We've seen those experiences before. That is not the experience that we want people to have. And they will, and this has happened a dozen times so far, where people are like, that should be user selectable. And we're like, nah, all right, let's just keep moving. Let's just pick one and keep moving. And then 3 months goes by, not a single person requests that it look different. They get used to it and they're like, it's great, it's fine. It is what it is, right? It's really not that important. That is not a key thing for sure. People will literally forget about all of this. Now, this stream will be, there goes my hydration, hold on. This stream will be referenceable. So people will go back to find it and then they'll be like, oh man, there could have been an option. But if they didn't know that this option ever existed, they will just rock with what you give them. And then we won't have to live in the land of 1,000 switches. And that's what we're trying to avoid. Nobody wants that. And once you commit to having that switch, man, it's hard to take it away from people, okay? It's much easier to just tell them, you know what, get over it, get over it, get over it. And they will get over it, that's the thing. They will get over it, and then guess what? We all get to enjoy life in the land of, 9, 10 switches and not 1,000 switches. We don't want to live in the land of 1,000 switches. But I think this is gonna be good. Oh, look at this. What a poet. What a poet. Okay, how does ACSS work with this? Ruben, can you expand on the word this? Which part? Which part are you wondering? Okay.
So somebody commented that when in vertical mode, the toolbar should probably be on the left instead of the right.
Yeah, it's probably something that we need to do some testing on. If I move this over, see what happens, boom. I was kind of thinking the same thing when I tested it a little bit the other day. It would interfere with the numbering of the lines.
Yeah, that's my feeling as well, though.
Yeah, I think that's why they put it on the right, because we do have something over here that is important, your line numbers, your folding actions, being able to fold these things up. It would potentially interfere with that for sure.
Perhaps, although the fact that the clicking happens essentially all on the left might actually be an advantage.
Yes. Yeah, it could be. We need to see it. We need to see it. Yeah. We need to experience it.
Also, Tommy's in chat, so maybe he's also going to address that. And then somebody else commented, can we have highlighting of matching brackets, which I think is a very smart thing to have.
Yeah, there's a lot of generalized improvements coming to this area down here. They're just, everybody should keep in mind we're really prioritizing like critical functionality, and then a lot of like this icing on the cake stuff is going to come later. But we have to strike a balance, because if we spend a lot of time on icing on the cake for a cake where there's not much cake, it's like, why are you guys icing this? What, you gave me a fucking cupcake. Like, we're trying to give you a sheet cake. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's really delicious. But we gotta bake the cake first. So, like, you can't do the icing before all that's done. So yeah, that's kind of what's going on there.
Yeah. Also, I think Daxter is bringing up the argument that this is more like the talking about the different colors for the toolbar. That is mostly an accessibility issue, where I would understand the need for a preference.
And this will be with Doug too. First of all, every color pairing in the app meets accessibility guidelines. So technically speaking, everything is accessible. What you're looking at right here is accessible because it passes on contrast ratios. Now, without giving you a setting, guess what? There is still a pathway to making higher contrast in the app. You can customize it yourself with our variables. You can hijack our variables and customize it yourself. That's why we don't need switches. That's why we don't need settings. If you really, really, really want it to be a different way, you can actually just make it a different way on your particular install. But what we have to avoid, what is more important to avoid, is we cannot create a land of 1,000 switches. So we cannot do that. We absolutely have to avoid that at all costs. So you already have a pathway. If you feel like, okay, yes, I get it. It passes contrast ratios, but I am Stevie Wonder, okay? Well, guess what? We don't need switches just for Stevie. Stevie can go in and customize the app and take it over and make it to his liking, and he can be happy too. But we don't need a switch that everybody has to suffer from, that 90% of people are never going to use just for that purpose, right? Okay.
Yeah. Ruben clarified. He said, I'm assuming stock Etch, fresh install, will have stock variables. When I install ACSS, will those variables overwrite the stock ones?
So stock Etch has 2 variables, like stock variables, and they both match automatic CSS because they just make sense. Like, I think it's 2 off the top of my head. The main one is content width. So the content width variable is the main variable, and it's a stock variable. And then that's it. Like, literally, Etch is a blank slate. It is not an opinionated. You don't start with like opinionated tokens or anything like that. You are responsible for either creating your own framework, using an existing framework, whether that's automatic CSS or Tailwind or whatever you want to use. Or using no framework at all. Like, you could literally just be a psychopath and you just use no framework, right? That it's your prerogative. So, but we don't supply some opinionated like Etch framework thing. We had to use tokens in a couple places where they're just critical, like content width. We have to know there has to be that as a setting, but that's about it. Oh, gutter. That was it. Yes, it's gutter and content width. Those are like the 2 mission critical things that really need to be tokenized. Okay, let's see. Yeah, Doug, I mean, that's the beauty, right? You could actually make custom Etch themes and sell them if there's enough market for that. You could make your own theme and sell it for sure. Okay, let's move on to the second announcement. Second thing. Let's get this out of the way. Right. Let's get this out of the way. Mini GUI. Let's just. Oh, is it that easy to remove from styling panels? Do you know how many styling panels I would have to hunt down to get rid of all that nonsense? When you have the code in front of you, you can just do whatever you want. Do whatever you need to do. You know how many yellow dots I would have had to track down? Nobody wants to play that game. Okay, so let's talk about loop fallbacks. So I'm going to explain this very, very quickly and simply, okay? I have 2 posts on this site right here. I have 2 posts, all right? And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add a section down here, and I'm just gonna add a heading. This is gonna be my post heading, right? We'll change that to an H3 real quick. And then I'm just gonna right click and I'm gonna say wrap in loop, okay? So loop fallbacks, I'm gonna give you the what was wrong with not having them. This is something that we added very recently because, again, we're balancing what is it okay to not have right now? What is it okay to not have right now? And what is it not okay to not have right now? So we did the loop thing and we added loop arguments. And when we added loop arguments, which give you a lot of flexibility in loops, there was the idea of, but we kind of need fallbacks, right? And we were like, maybe we can get away with not having fallbacks quite yet. But it does create a major, major problem. And we recognize that, okay, this just kind of falls into that unacceptable to not have yet bucket. And so we prioritized it and we got it released. So I'm gonna explain how this works. So we have my loop, which is looping through my posts right here. And if I edit my post loop, you can see it's a very, very simple loop. It's saying grab the post type of post. We want -1 post per page, which is all. Okay, that's give me every post. We can order by the date. And then, I don't know, there's something wrong with this here. Just post status. I don't even know what happened to my loop when I was playing with it earlier. Okay. What is it? Order. I don't know all these by heart. Order. And then I think descend is the, does that seem correct? That seems correct, right? All right, let's save that. Now over here, we should be able to, as your loop preview, you see 2 objects right there, right? Okay, so that's all good. That's all fine and dandy. This is what you would have had with a normal loop now that that is fixed. And you can see that here, if I do item.title, for example, I'm gonna get the title of my 2 posts. And that's fantastic. Now, what if you wanted to use this loop in a certain area of the site to only show 1 post or to show 10 posts or whatever? We're gonna do 1 and -1 because we only have 2 posts. That's all we can do. So what we would do, we created this idea of arguments because you don't want to have a bunch of loops where you're like, well, this loop loops 10 and then this loop is the same loop, but it only loops 1. And this is the same loop again, but it loops all of them. Like, you don't want to get into that scenario, right? So I'm going to go to the loop manager. I'm going to go to posts. And what we did is we came up with the concept of these arguments where I could create an argument like count, and then I could pass the count. So if I go here, back to my loop, look, I only have 1 now. That's an issue we're going to talk about in just a second. But what this allows me to do is go in here and define count of 1 or -1. See, if I do -1, I get all of them. If I do 1, I only get 1. If there were 10 and I did 3, I would get 3, whatever. You get the idea, right? But notice one of the downsides. The minute I had already deployed this loop. The minute I created that argument, this loop actually broke, because there's no value for the argument. It's looking at an argument like, I don't have a value for you, so I'm just going to break. And another downside was the preview over here actually would break too. So anytime you use an argument, you now have a broken preview and really no control over the because I can't set a value for count right here. So this is a loop that's looping with no value for this argument, and a lot of times it just completely breaks the loop. You don't even have data to look at. And you actually had to come in and it got to the point where I was like, this is just, it's not acceptable to not have this yet, okay? So we have to have a way to set a fallback. So what we do now, and it's a question mark notation, okay? And I can set a fallback value. So I've created the same argument as before, but now I have a fallback value, and look at what has been restored. My loop now has both objects in it, okay? Now I come in here and I can see my loop still functioning. Even though I haven't declared any argument or value combination, it's still a working loop. I can still come in and say count is only 1 and get 1 result, right? But if I don't give it anything, it's gonna fall back to whatever the fallback value is. This is very, very, very critical functionality for arguments and loops. And I would encourage you, anytime you are setting an argument, go ahead and set a sensible default. For example, if I was going to set a custom order argument for this, okay, I'm gonna set an order argument, fallback is descending, okay? And now I can go in and control the order of any individual loop. But if I don't, right? If I forget, whatever, it's going to use descending as the default, okay? So just very, very, very critical functionality here. I'm going to go ahead and hit save. Are there any questions on that? That's really all we need to look at. There is, by the way, documentation on all this stuff. So if you go, for example, you go to loop arguments and you come down, creating custom arguments, here you go, default argument values. It's going to explain everything to you here. Are we good? Okay, any question marks? But can we do question mark anyway, since that's just null coalescing operator in PHP? What we're trying to do is we're trying to, sounds like this should just be a default setup. No. I'm not sure what you're referring to. What do you mean by should just be a default setup?
There was another comment that says, why not just fall back to the WordPress defaults for those?
To show that's already a thing. I mean, I don't know. That would be a question for you, Matej. You could, but this gives you the ability to define your own default value.
Yeah, I think that's the main issue. Like, we want you to define what the default for that specific loop that you're writing is, rather than just assuming that it's WordPress's default. You can still set it as the same as the WordPress default if you want to.
Yeah, and if you guys notice, we're not breaking syntax. Like this is how we want everything to align with PHP and WordPress and JavaScript, the things that we're doing. We're not trying to create like proprietary experiences and languages when at all possible. Can this be used to set a no post found for a search query? I think that would be a different functionality, but maybe that's a question for you, Mateo.
What's the question?
I'll put it up on the screen. Can this be used to set a no post found for a search query, or like, and really any loop? Like, what if you create a loop and there's no items?
No, that's a different feature that still need. Like that plus pagination is probably the things that loops are still missing.
Yeah. Let's see if there's any pertinent questions on fallbacks. We can get to them before we move on. CSS. How is the progress? I'll just answer this one real quick because it's easy. Yeah. How's the progress with Elements API? It's probably the next. It's like one of the next things on the list. After we get, we talked about probably prioritizing that before like V1 official. So it's part of like the beta. Probably going to be part of the beta phase.
Yeah, you could say we started a little bit on that. In that we shipped those custom hooks. I don't know if you were going to talk about the custom hooks.
Let me go. I'm going to pull it up on the doc. So let's see. I'll just, I think they're called canvas hooks.
Yeah, I think so.
Or just hooks. Okay. It's under integrations and hooks. So yeah, this is kind of the start of it a little bit. And everybody's free to go. Read this.
It's not the Elements API yet, but it's in the same space as third-party tools.
API bucket. Yeah, it's in the bucket.
Exactly.
Okay.
When will pagination be implemented? That's a good question.
That's going to be with filters and facets, I would imagine. And I mean, if it's up to me, like as soon as V1 official comes out, remember there's technically a feature freeze, right? But there's some things like that are just like loop fallbacks. Is that technically a feature, or is it an expansion of an existing feature, a polishing of an existing feature, right? There's a little bit of balance to find out there, but filters and facets, there's no gray area. That is completely 100% new feature. So that would come after V1 official, V1 stable. We say. A lot of people say V1 stable. I say V1 official. Like I feel it's stable, right? Where we're at is stable. But official V1, that is when we would start looking at new features. I want them to be very soon after. I want filters and facets like let's go. I want to be able to sort. I want to be able to do all this, the stuff that we normally do with our loops. So for me, that's a top priority, but we'll have a discussion with the team. Like John says, you're doing facets? No way. Absolutely. Absolutely. And John, it's not going to be an add-on. It's not going to be like, you buy Etch, you buy the stuff you need. This is what you need. You need it to do, you need these things. So they're not going to be add-ons either, which is fantastic. Okay. Do we also have fallback for dynamic data? Like, for example, a default featured image in case there is not one set? No, I don't think so. Now, in components, you do. In components, you do.
Yeah.
But in like templates, I don't think, not yet. But that will come as well. That it's not as important, because what you actually should be doing, think about it this way. Let's say that let's say you design a blog post template, okay? And it's based on posts having a featured image. So you put in a featured image, you hook in the dynamic data. Is it better to have a fallback featured image for a post that has no featured image, or logic that says, hey, if the featured image doesn't exist, let's not even load the featured image, and let's make sure that the design we built conforms to a non-featured image version? Because just sticking a random image on a blog post doesn't actually do you any good either, right? That would actually, I would say, be worse in many cases. Like, hold on, you have a blog post on this topic. What is this random image I'm looking at? That's not a great scenario. So what I would do currently is not set a fallback for a featured image. I would just use logic to say, if there is no featured image, let's remove the image. That would be the more appropriate thing to do. Okay, are we ready to move on to the third thing? I think we can, probably. HTML element. Okay, so let's do, I'm gonna put a container in here. We'll build the world's simplest card. So we're just gonna build a little component real quick, okay? I'm gonna say simple card, and I'm gonna do a heading, and I'm gonna do text, and we'll make the heading an H3, since most cards are going to be that way. And I will right click and I'll say create component. So we now have our little simple card component here. And I am only going to create one prop for right now, and that is going to be the text prop. And I'm just going to map that by clicking this little symbol and then clicking here. And there you go. And this is like my default value right here. Okay, so default value, I'm going to go ahead and hit save, and I'm going to exit. And you see that we have a default value. And I'm going to come in here. I'll shrink this back down so we have more real estate, and I'll put a section down below so I can scroll down a little bit more as well. And so now I obviously have this text area over here where I can say this is my unique value. Now, what if I wanted value to be bolded or something, or I want to put a span with a class and I want to style that, okay? I'm just going to do something like strong and strong, okay? So obviously, we're seeing the code on the canvas. Nothing is happening if I go to the front end. This is obviously not what we want. Like, we want the word value to actually be bolded, okay? So how do we approach this? Well, what we can do is we can use the new HTML element. I'll go to the docs. I'm going to go to elements. I'm going to go to HTML. Now, you can add this manually if you want to. There is an icon for it down when you are in the component editor, or when you are, because it's really for dynamic data for the most part. So when you're in the component editor, when you're in the template editor, you're going to see it. It's a little icon that says HTML. You can read all about it and how to use it, but I'm just going to show it to you real quick. And I'm going to show you the easiest way to implement it, okay? Because there is a one-click way to implement it. So when you see this happening, what you have to understand, this is a security feature. It would not be good to just let anybody come in willy-nilly and be dropping code into component props that you created, or custom fields where that's being pulled into a template from dynamic data or whatever it may be, okay? Can't just be letting code get executed that way. You have to opt in to say, hey, I want you to allow code like this to come through and be parsed and processed, okay? So we have this simple card.
It might be good if you move the camera. It might be covering that area.
Which one? My headshot?
Yeah. Maybe bottom right.
What was I covering? Was there
the code the code that you were writing?
Oh, like down here? I don't know that that code is super valuable, but because I'm more likely to cover stuff on the right, I would think, but whatever. Are they talking about this?
Top left then? Top right then? Just
That'll cover all the
structure
panel. Yeah, I don't know. I'll just leave it here for right now.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think everybody can see now. Okay.
Yeah,
so
you can see that part.
Yeah, we see here. Basically, you what this is doing is it's creating an opt-in situation where you're saying, hey, code is supposed to come through here. And there's kind of two levels to this. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to right-click this. I'm going to edit the component, go back to our text, right? And so this is where I'm trying to pass in the code. I'm going to right-click. I'm going to say convert to raw HTML. Convert to raw HTML. And what that's going to do is it's going to take whatever I just had, it's going to add the HTML element, and it's going to add it into the content field where it's supposed to go. And I'm just going to hit save, and I'm going to exit, and you see immediately that that's working now. So it's allowing that to come through as functioning HTML. But it is still going to sanitize things like script tags, for example. So people can't come in and throw a script tag in a prop and do whatever willy-nilly stuff that they're trying to do, unless you go a step further. Okay, so if I edit my component again and go to that HTML element, there is a little toggle switch called unsafe rendering, where you're literally saying, hey, whatever they drop in, let it execute. Let it execute, okay? Wouldn't recommend doing that, but if for some reason you need to do that, you can do that, but I'm gonna turn that off, and I just wanted to explain that for everybody. But this, anytime you're seeing HTML coming through dynamic data, that should trigger you to be like, I probably need the HTML element, okay? Because that is opting in to code execution from an external source, which is a security. You better know, the implications of doing that, and you better know who's accessing the site, okay? Because, it is what it is. But we're not gonna allow it by default. You have opted into it by using the HTML element. Okay. Are we good now? I face it in the way.
I think so.
Okay.
I'm just waiting for chat to catch up.
Yeah. Let's go ahead and we'll start answering some random questions. Obviously, there's a lot of things that we've done. You can go through the change logs, obviously. A lot of performance improvements, a lot of UX, generalized UX improvements. One of my favorite is the Content Hub. Now defaults to showing you your pages. It's lightning fast now. I don't know what sites maybe I've updated the Etch site. Let me see if it's on beta 3. Plugins. Yeah, it's on beta 3. So I'll just launch Etch here. Okay, Content Hub. But boom! It's like it's phenomenal. Like look how many change logs entries there are. Okay, it's phenomenally fast. It's just getting to everything really, really, really quick. It's great. It's fantastic. There's a lot of post types in here, and this is an area that a lot of people have been asking about. Expanding the custom post type functionality, the custom field functionality. This is an area where we'll probably take a vote. You should, after we get to V1 official, you'll probably see a poll in the community. This is kind of how we've always done things. Hey, a lot of people want filters and facets. A lot of people want expanded Content Hub functionality. A lot of people want this thing over here. Vote, have at it, okay? And whatever one wins, that's the one we go with, all right? Look for that to happen very soon after V1 official comes out. Because honestly, we're at a point where you can make a case for facets and filters, but you can make another strong case for expansion of custom field functionality and native custom. There's a lot of people who are like, I want to get rid of ACF as fast as I possibly can. I want to get rid of MetaBox as fast as I possibly can. Right? So for those people, this expansion is going to be very important. But then there's people who are like, I don't care about that as much as I really just want native facets and filters. Give me that. Okay, so we got to turn it over to a voting situation and let people decide what they want to do. Another thing I can show you, probably. And some of this has to do, this version, so what you're looking at here, the problems that you're going to see in this Gutenberg, are ACSS related. They're not Etch related. This site is not on any of the recent versions of ACSS. primarily because I have to refactor some things on this site because they were done with older stuff. And I don't want to do that work yet, so I haven't updated it. But if you can see, we have removed the big, generic, obnoxious heading that Gutenberg puts on every single page. So now you literally get one-to-one rendering from the top of your page down, right? There's no giant heading for the page title sitting in your design. And everything is, stable one-to-one, like the loops are working, the logic's working, everything is working. There's just ACSS is on an old version here, so you're not seeing the styles correctly. But as far as the block authoring of everything goes, it's all fantastic. So it's all good to go. And then this is an area where things are going to get built out much more very soon as well. You got all the props passing through, right? Functional, all that good stuff. So that I don't think it was in the that was October, right? November. I think that was early November. Okay. Are we going to be able to see ACF data in Content Hub? ACF data in Content Hub. So, do I still have that site open? I don't. Let me go back real quick. Yeah, I'll talk a little bit about where the Content Hub is going. Okay, so here is changelog. So in changelog, I have slug, which I don't really particularly care about. Status, I don't particularly care about. I really don't care when it was created or when it was last edited. And then actions is kind of ugly. You have to use your imagination. But what you're going to be able to do here, you're essentially going to have all of the functionality of like an admin columns pro, where you decide what columns of information that you want to see, including custom field information. And all of this does have inline editing. It already has inline editing. You just can't control the columns you see. But you'll be able to see the exact columns that you want to see. You'll be able eventually, if I go to I don't even have a post on here. Oh, because I'm using, I created my own. So here's all my blog posts, right? I would even have perhaps even a modal to open a rich text editor where I can edit the content of the post in here without going back into the block editor, for example. That would eventually be perhaps a scenario. So we want to be able to do as much inline editing from here as possible so that you can literally just jump to anywhere and edit some content and hit save and then jump to somewhere else and never go into WordPress. Just never really have to go into WordPress. That would be ideal. That's kind of the vision of the unified development environment. And then of course I can add custom fields from here, change their values. I can add custom post types. Like I could literally add a team, add custom fields for the team, add the team members, because you can add posts in here, right? If I go all the way to the bottom, I can add a new one. So you can add stuff in. I could literally add all team members, add their images, add their name, their titles, their whatever, all in here, then jump over to loops, create a loop for them, and then jump to my page and create a loop and build it. I would never even go into WordPress. It would just be amazing, right? That's kind of the vision of the Content Hub. Okay, let's go into generalized Q&A.
Yeah, there's a few questions that are rolling in. I think we can answer this one that is related. Will there be hooks to allow us to set custom columns exactly the way we want?
I don't know what he means by hooks, but yes.
I assume he means when we have this new iteration of the Content Hub, will we be able to programmatically tell the Content Hub which columns we want to see?
Yes.
My volume is low. Let me sit a little closer to the microphone. Yes, I imagine that's going to be something that we're going to do. Not sure exactly when we're going to prioritize it, but generally speaking, if something makes sense to be done programmatically, we're probably going to bake in a way for it to be programmatically set.
Yeah.
Then let me see. Let me address this one because I think it's important from the HTML element. What happens if you don't use the raw HTML feature and you exit Etch? Can you bold the text in Gutenberg using the Gutenberg UI as the client might do? I think it's important that we unpack this a little bit because it really depends on where that content is coming from and where it's going. But the general idea is if you have dynamic content, you have content stored in your database, or it's coming from a JSON file, somewhere that isn't the canvas where you are putting stuff, and you want that to support HTML tags, you have to use the HTML element. For those of you who are familiar, think of the Etch element as the WPKS's function in WordPress, which essentially allows you to define how to handle HTML coming through a string. The current implementation of the HTML element is really pretty much binary. It allows some HTML through or all HTML through. Eventually, we want to have more flexibility. So you can also say, I want to let through, I don't know, paragraphs, bold, EM, strong EM, links, but I don't want to let other stuff through. That's something that WPKSS allows you to do. And it is important from a security perspective because we all know the classic scripts and the classic scripts, the classic cross-site scripting injection with a script tag. You can inject scripts, you can inject JavaScript into links, into the href element attribute of a link. You can inject in various places. You, as the developer, need to be aware of this. So you want to allow your customer, your client, to bold things, to put a list, to do something that requires markup. You need to be aware of what markup you want to allow, and you need to explicitly set it. That's the important part. That's why the HTML element exists, and think of this as the first iteration, where the next ones are going to allow you even more flexibility into what goes through, what is allowed to go through the HTML element.
Yeah. And I just showed on the screen while you were talking about using Gutenberg to do basic bolding, italics, changing the order of things. All of that stuff passes through to Etch and then passes through to the front end, and it keeps it bidirectionally synced. It's all kind of one unit.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, one thing we should show people is recipes. It's one thing I didn't talk about. So I am going to do container real quick. We'll do this as quickly as possible. I don't have any components on this site. So recipes is, and probably important to talk about, we'll do an ACSS stream on this. For those of you who aren't up to speed on ACSS 4.0, we did a poll on this. We did a lot of thinking on this. It's kind of a radical shift, but it's the shift that I think makes absolute sense for Era 4. And that is that we have removed, actually I can show you probably, it's a bit easier. Okay, let me go to options. Let me go to class manager. There used to be an insanely long list of class modules for features, like turn this feature on, turn that feature on, blah, 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 blah. And they had tons and tons of big libraries of utility classes behind them. ACSS has gotten insanely lightweight. And that is because we are fully committing to, hey, Era 4, the way that we have tools with auto BIM, this concept of recipes. Remember, this stuff never existed. When automatic CSS was first created and people were like, well, things should be very utility class heavy and da-da-da-da-da. No. That was all the wrong direction, right? What it should be is BIM is still king, first of all. BIM is just an undefeated organizational philosophy for writing custom class names. It's so simple, it's so effective, it's so easy to teach. It's just BIM is king. It's been king for like decades. Okay, so what we really need is a BIM first approach. The problem with BIM is that you had to write a bunch of class names, custom class names. Okay, you don't have to do that anymore. We took away the one downside of BIM. We just eliminated it with auto BIM. So this idea of, which by the way, you have to organize your structure panel in the first place. You organize your structure panel properly, you click a button, all your BEM classes are created, and now you use a variable first workflow. So you're using variables as values essentially everywhere. And then we introduced the concept of contextualizing variables to make them even more useful and manageable. To where you're not using generic variables in all these places, you're using variables intelligently and contextually to give you, and this is why ACSS was the first framework that literally you can build an entire site before you even configure the framework. And it all can be done exactly how you want it to be. That was not possible in the past. So we did innovations like auto BIM, and now recipes. Recipes were never a thing. Recipes solve so many problems. We're going to be bringing mix-ins to vanilla CSS before the vanilla CSS spec actually brings them to you. With special parsing. We're going to be bringing tokenization of media queries to you before the CSS working group actually gets around to figuring out how to make them work. We're going to make them work in Etch. We're right around the corner from doing that. So you're going to have tokenized media queries, you're going to have recipes, you're going to have auto BIM, you're going to have a variable first workflow. And what this means is that we don't need libraries of utility classes anymore. And so we've stripped them all out of automatic CSS, and it's insanely lightweight. I actually got rid of, look, you're going to go to, I think it was under layout, right? No more media queries. Automatic CSS is a media query free framework. There is no need for media queries in the framework anymore, which is fantastic, okay? All of this stuff is getting way faster, way easier, way lighter, and it's fantastic, right? So that's important to understand. I don't know exactly where I was going with that, but back to recipes, okay? So if you don't have utility classes, how do you still access things, certain very difficult things that lived behind utility classes? Like, for example, content grid. Like, for example, clickable parent, focus parent, okay? These accessibility features that we use heavily. Well, one, it doesn't make sense for those things to be utility classes because you're always doing them in some sort of custom like block or component. And so it should be BIM. And the problem with utility classes is they're not compatible with BIM. And now you get into a littering situation where we're littering utility classes and we're using BIM for most things, but then littering these utility classes in certain places. There's a very small use case for utility classes. And that's really what they should be. Here's a specific utility that there's no better way to do it than a utility class that can maintain utility class functionality. Everything else is handled now by recipes and eventually mix-ins. Okay, so I'm gonna give you an example where we might have a heading text. This is like an introduction. Hi, I'm an intro, okay? And then we have lead paragraph. You can ignore that. We're gonna do a container here, and I'm gonna put an image in the container. And again, this is gonna be a custom thing. Apparently I only have one image in here, somebody's headshot, okay? It's not gonna look great, okay? But I'm not gonna go find other images. So we're gonna call this a media wrapper, and we're gonna call this media, well, you know what, I should. Let's just make it look a little good, okay? Let's make it at least a little good for everybody. All right, so let's download this. Mountains, okay, squoosh, mountains, resize, 1900. By the way, Etch, at some point, I don't know when, but you're gonna be able to do all this inside of Etch. You're not gonna have to go to Squoosh, and you're not gonna have, it's gonna do this image processing for you, because nobody likes to do this. Turn it to WebP, okay, 124, okay, mountains, WebP. Let's get back to where we were. So, because I see, was that a unified development environment? No, that felt very ununified. I had to do a lot of ununified things right there that I didn't want to do. So, and I shouldn't have to do. I should be able to do that in Etch. So we're gonna go here, we're gonna add at least some decent media, okay? So I've got an intro and I've got media. And now this has a gutter, right? You know there's a gutter here. I want that image to go edge to edge, but there's that pesky ass gutter. And if I get rid of the gutter, I'm gonna have to do something with this intro because now that intro is gonna touch the edge, but I didn't want the intro to touch the edge. I just want this image to touch the edge. This is a very, my hero, okay? I'm just gonna right click create BEM classes, okay? This is a very common scenario that is one really good use case for content grid. One really good use case for content grid. So if I take this my hero, by the way, I'm gonna get rid of this stupid ID. I don't want that anymore. Okay, we actually have a class on here. So my hero, I want to use content grid. Now before we would do, we would add content grid, like the utility class, right? But now I already have my hero. And then, by the way, if I want to share this hero section, here's another thing you haven't thought about, probably. If I want to share this hero section with somebody, what if they don't have ACSS? That content grid, everything's gonna break because it's all gonna be based now on content grid and they don't have it. They don't have that utility class. But when I use a recipe bakes the code. I'm gonna hit a question mark. You're gonna see all of my recipes that I have available to me, okay? And I'm gonna do content grid. Content grid is a very complex scenario that nobody wants to learn, nobody wants to know how to do. They just want the benefits of it. They don't want to have to study it, okay? And so when you use the content grid recipe, you get all of the content grid functionality attached to my hero, and it will now live with my hero and be portable and exportable to anywhere, even people that don't have ACSS, because this is not we took an ACSS feature and we made it a native Etch recipe. So you don't need ACSS to use this, which is fantastic. It is a framework, technically, feature, but it only exists when you ask it to exist. And now you'll see nothing has happened, right? But what I got is I got the ability to come in here to the media wrapper and say grid column full. And now it goes edge to edge. And look, I don't have to worry about anything else in this, only this one. Now I could also say feature max, okay? And that's gonna go into the feature max area, which you can't see on this small screen. Let me go to the front end where we probably have more real estate. So see how it extends wider than this? And then I also have another zone called feature, okay? Which would go just a little bit wider. So you have feature max, you have full. You also have the ability to combo them. So I could do something like content to full, which is gonna make it break out to one side, okay? I don't know why it's not going all the way, I gotta check it. But it would go all the way to the edge on that side, but it would stay aligned with content on this side. I could also flip them where I say full and then content. Maybe it has to be like content end or something like that. Okay, let's try that. Boom. Yeah, there's a bug with it. So I think, I probably know what it is. It's probably related to, we're not removing, we need probably a HASME selector or whatever or just remove the padding on, I don't know. I have to go debug it. But once we get it working, it'll go full edge to edge, but it stops at the right content side, so it stays perfectly aligned. So you got a lot of different options there for how you can maneuver content. And we're not even getting into the territory of, if you build a blog post template, you should be building your blog post template with content grid, because what it allows you to do is from inside of the post, let me go into here, posts. You can do stuff programmatically or you can do it one-off. But let's go into, I don't think any of this is probably a bad example because they don't actually have, let me go into Geary Co, WP admin. None of these have images. I rarely ever use images in these. Let's go in here. You can really do this with anything, not even images. And I have to do a whole video on content grid, I know. Let's see if this one has a bunch of images. It's just a bunch of text. But if you put in an image, okay? Let's say you threw in an image here, okay? I don't want to upload. Let's just do media library. Let's use this desk right here. I could come into CSS classes. We do have some utilities that work inside of Gutenberg, and you could do content feature, and it will literally put it in the feature zone. Or you could say feature max, and it'll put it in the feature max zone. Or you could say full, and it'll put it full width. And you're controlling how these elements, and that could be an image, it could be a box of any kind, it could be a single paragraph, it could be a block quote, it could be whatever. You're controlling how it interacts with the blog post template from inside of Gutenberg. It's like the most flexible way to do I'm sure you've seen very advanced blog posts where it's like, whoa, how'd that break out to the left in here? How'd they do all that? Well, they do it very manually. But you could do it programmatically with content grid with a couple little utility classes. And it's just one of the aspects. You could also nest content grid. I got to do a whole content grid video, but it's insanely flexible. Now back to the whole point that I was getting to is that exists as a recipe, okay? What if you were building a card, right? I'm gonna break all this because we're not actually doing what we would want to do. But what if this was a card and it had a link inside of it, right? And I wanted that link to apply to the entire card. I want to use the clickable parent technique. Well, I have a clickable parent recipe. Boom. There's my clickable parent functionality. What if I now want to use focus parent so that on focus, the whole card gets focused and not the link inside of it? Okay, I just do focus parent and let's get it to expand. Focus, you can't be too quick on the keyboard. Focus parent, boom. Now I've got focus parent functionality. These things exist as recipes so they can be attached to your custom class and you're not mixing custom classes with utility classes, okay? Very, very, very awesome functionality. You'll be able to create your own recipes, share recipes, sell recipe packs, whatever you want to do. There's other recipes that help you. Like if I wanted to do a color mix function here and I don't know how to write it, I can just ask for it as a recipe. So we have full, like you saw, some recipes are very detailed. Some recipes just kind of help you out like a little bit right here, okay? There's a good mix of them. You can learn about them in the documentation. Again, you'll be able to create your own import, export, whatever you want to do. Recipes are a game changer for CSS. Okay. Can we still make the whole site use content grid as default? Yeah, like it's not a toggle switch anymore. But what you can do, I wouldn't really recommend it because there are some limitations to content grid that you need to be aware of. I personally don't apply it everywhere. I only apply it where I need it. But I'll give you an example because here's the other thing about recipes. If there's a recipe, I don't think I can I use them in here? Oh my God, I can. Okay. All right, so check this out. So let's say I want to add a style sheet called utilities. Because some people have been like, well, I really Kevin, I just love having utility class for that one thing, Kevin. Okay, great. That's fantastic, right? Just made a utility class for content grid, okay? Done. So if you really, really, really still wanted one on your one little project right here, you can make it. You just make it. Just use the recipe to make it and you're done, right? So it's the best of both worlds. We don't have to live in the land of 1,000 toggle switches and 1,000 modules and all this other stuff. We have this hidden functionality that you can just call on when you need it and use it in any form or fashion that you want to use it in. Okay, so you get all the benefits, none of the downsides. You just made a content grid utility class right there. If I wanted to make, hey, Kevin, clickable parent, I really, really want that to still be a utility class. Okay, great. Okay, great. Now it's a utility class. Okay, like you just make it yourself, and if you make it in the blueprint, it'll always be there for you. Okay, so yeah, you get the best of both worlds this way. Insanely light framework. Very easy to manage and set up and use. Because here's another thing you have to think about with ACSS, like trying to teach people and trying to get people to, they look at the options list and if there's 1,000 switches there, their brain just melts instantly. They're like, oh my God, there's no way I'm going to learn. Okay, so we don't need all that. You're right, we don't need all that. Let's just go BIM first, variable first, recipe first framework. The only one in existence. There's no other framework that works like this. Contextualized, fully contextualized. The things like card framework, icon framework that I'm going to show you in a minute, just fully refactored for the new color scheme, light dark functionality. Like this is stuff, the world has not seen this stuff before, okay? And it's just getting better and better and better and better. How to add custom recipes, I never knew this existed. Well, you don't know it existed because it's not fully fleshed out yet. It's the only recipes that exist are the ones we pre-programmed for you. But you can't create your own yet. You will be able to soon, but you can't import, export them yet. You will be able to soon. But right now it's just a proof of concept showing you, hey, here are some example recipes for you. I'll go in and we'll take a look. So you got auto grid, border, center all. So like remember the center all classes in automatic CSS if you were familiar with them, okay? Like I want to center all of this text and let's say it had like a min height, okay? So I can go min block size, right? 50 VH, just like that. So there gives us a little bit of breathing room. I want all these things centered, not just centered here, but centered in the box itself, okay? I don't know how to do that. Let's say I don't know how to do that. And I don't want to click a bunch of buttons. Like I could do this. It's actually easier now with like, Mini GUI kind of showed you how easy it is, okay? But what if I didn't want to do all of that? What if I am used to the workflow of ACSS where I do center all, boom, centered all. And it gives you the things for centering all, okay? Look at Mini GUI recognizing what's actually been done there and highlighting what's actually been done, okay? Fantastic. But there's recipes for all this kind of stuff. My brain does not like hitting question mark. Okay, so let's go down. I'll try to zoom in. By the way, you can center to all aspects of the box, not just all. You can center to the bottom, to the left, to the right, and to the top. There's clickable parent, there's color mix, there's columns, there's concentric radius, there's content grid, which you saw, divider all. Let's see what that does. Let's go back to, and I like doing this because I actually haven't tested all these things. What if I wanted a divider between all of these elements right here? I don't know how to programmatically do that. I don't know how to accomplish that. I mean, I do, but a lot of people might not, right? So you just do divider all, right? And of course it doesn't work. So, oh, this is still based on the bricks recipe. That's why. Some of these have to be anti-bricksed. These were in bricks because they were based on ACSS. That's one of the ones that has to be brought over. I'll just show you again what happened there. Let's go divider all. It's got the bricks roots in here. Their dynamic root selector. We could probably, there we go. That is transition those to ampersands and it should work. So that's what divider all does right there. So if you're like, dude, I want a divider between, okay, there you go. There's a divider between everything. And then you can come in, the great thing about the recipe is, and it says right here, available override tokens. So if you just uncomment this, just get rid of these comments, you now have these available to you. They should probably have values. Divider size, 1 pixel, divider inline size 100%, divider style, solid. I'm just gonna do these real quick. Divider color, red. Okay, divider gap, 1M. Okay, but these should all now be customizable. So if you're like, I want those to be dashed, okay? Yeah, we gotta debug this a little bit. Divider color, obviously, red, okay, that's not working. Divider inline size, but you do have, yeah, none of these are working for some reason. So we'll go in and debug, figure out what's going on with this particular recipe. But unlike with a utility class wouldn't alert you to these things and provide them for you. You would have to go read documentation. Okay, what can I customize? Okay, now you're in the docs. The recipe just kind of brings the things that you need for customization into the recipe itself. And then you can also, if there is an error for some reason, like you can come in and just fix it, right? But you could see all the code that's happening. Now there's also going to be, let's delete all that, mix-ins. So for those of you who do not know what a mix-in is, it would be something like this. This does not work yet, but it will. And this is from SAS. Okay, so you would do @include, and you would say divider all, boom. And so all the code, essentially all the code you were just looking at, would be contained inside of this one line. And then you would be able to do things. You can pass arguments, just like we were talking about loop arguments a minute ago. You could pass arguments into mixin. So you could say like dashed 10 pixel and then green or something like that. And it would modify the dividers based on the argument values you're passing in right here. But the benefit is it's all self-contained in a single line. So all that complexity is in a single line, and you could still manipulate it through arguments. That's called mix-ins. That's coming to Etch as well. Without SAS, you're not gonna need a SAS processor or any of that baggage or nonsense. It's just, we're gonna build a native parser. Where will we make our own recipes, like in the style manager maybe? Yeah, most likely. So you'll have selectors, variables, recipes, style sheets, mix-ins. It'll all be right here for you. I mean, we haven't decided officially, but I think that's the most natural place to put it.
Feels like that to me as well.
Yeah.
You brought up mix-ins. There was a question earlier. Would something like this, referring to the content grid recipe, be a mix-in instead of a recipe because of things like that bug? The ability to roll out a release, a patch for that bug.
Yeah. So we can't roll out patches for recipes. So we have to make sure that they're really, dialed in and working. Mix-ins, you would likely be able to roll out releases for. And so I kind of did like a very casual post actually, let me find it because it would probably be good for everybody to go reference and read. I can't remember where it was. I think maybe it was a response to somebody. I'll try to find it and kind of promote it in the community. But it was explaining the levels of, okay, a utility class has these pros and cons. A recipe has these pros and cons. A mix-in has these pros and cons. And one thing you have to understand about all of this is there is no one amazing approach for every single scenario that exists. So we live in a world where you as the user know the pros and cons of an approach. And you go, okay, based on the pros and cons in this specific scenario, I should use a utility class, or I should use a recipe, or I should use a mix-in, okay? And I just showed you how you can take a recipe or a mix-in. By the way, let's make sure everybody's on the same page with this. Okay, let's go back into Etch real quick, wherever we were. Okay, let's go to the style manager. Let's go to style sheets, utilities. Remember how I made a content grid recipe or a utility class by using the recipe? You would also be able to do this with a mix-in. Okay. And so there you go. There's your utility class created using the mix-in instead of the recipe. That's what it would look like. So that's fantastic. So you can make your own utility classes, and you would need to know. You'd be like, okay, and I use ribbons as an example. Like we're going to do this custom corner ribbon on cards. If you're only going to do that on one card in the entire project, well, just use the recipe or just use the mix-in. But now if you're going to have, oh, no, we're going to have like 5 different kinds of ribbons on 5 different kinds of cards. Okay, now we're getting into, that should probably be a utility class, especially if multiple kinds of cards are going to be loaded on the same page because you're trying to avoid code duplication. So at that point, you would come in and you would say ribbon, and you would use either the recipe or the mix-in to create a little utility class. Then you would start using the utility class, right? So by having all of these things at your fingertips, you have all of the flexibility, none of the downsides, nothing's missing. You just have to determine what's the best thing to use in this little scenario that I'm facing right here. Okay. Any other pertinent questions that you've seen? The new Page Building 101 Era 4 will start in January. It'll be free, 100% free. It'll be available on Geary.co YouTube channel. That will start in January. ACSS 4 will likely coincide with V1 Etch official. Maybe a little bit before, but they seem to be on a fairly consistent timeline. We're still working on, so I just refactored. I'll show you the cards refactoring right here. Look how easy this is going to be. Okay, so if you knew before, I wish I could show you a side by side. There was global card styles, light card styles, dark card styles. Can we get a card here? Let's just get a card. Maybe this will work. I think I had a little basic card. Let me do, my card. There you go. There's my card. So if I go into, let's go to options. So I have an options and I have styling and options. That's all I have now, right? Here's where you identify the cards that you're applying the card framework to. So you can see my card is right here being applied. Okay. If I took that off and saved, all that styling that you're looking at would go away. There's no more auto styling. Okay. I took that away. I was like, that's a bad idea. Like it was a good concept, but it's kind of a bad idea. You should just opt in. You should just opt into which cards get styled by the card framework automatically. By the way, if you don't put selectors here, you can still use the card variables to style a card. You totally can. This is just for auto styling. And this is an opt-in system for, hey, yes, I want the card framework to take over this card right here. So you can just list them there. That's gone. The container query, auto container query support for cards is now removed because, and this, I guess this would suck for maybe more for Bricks users or wherever other platform you're using them. But we have auto container queries, auto has me selector in it. It's just redundant. So it's not necessary. So the only real other option is you can default cards to display grid. But I'm going to go card styling here now. And you can see like I have primary card style. I can inherit, and this inherits either the project or the parent container or the template or wherever the card lives. It's going to inherit the style. or I can force light or force dark on my cards. There's no more light styles, dark styles, okay? You literally just style the card, okay? So I'm using neutral ultralight here. Can I change this to, there you go. So I have live preview for what I'm doing. All right, so I'm able to change this stuff, heading color, text color, and then I automatically have, because of the way the new color scheme functionality works, there's just automatically a dark variation of it. And then I have spacing that I can, you know, I can control my generalized card spacing, my content gaps, my typography, you know, the size of card headings, what the default is. Regardless of the tag that I'm using, I force a heading size. I have all my border styles. I have all my buttons and links. Remember, you're not managing this and, oh, I got to do all this for light and I got to do all this for dark. No, you don't. You just style your card, okay? I got my avatars. I got my media. I got my card shadows that I might want, okay? I've got my card icons. I can opt into using a box style in cards, even if I'm not using them elsewhere on my site, and control all of the styling for card icons, all right? Keep everything very, very nice and consistent. And then what I can do is you can just force a dark style, or you can force the light style. But if you inherit, we have two new utility classes. This is a good example for utility. Now, you don't have to do this with utility class. I'll show you in just a second, okay? But what if I wanted to just have a scheme on this container right here? Maybe I have a bunch of cards, okay? And I wanted to scheme dark. There they go. They're all dark in this whole container, okay? In this whole container. So I'm gonna take that off. What if I wanted it just applied to a single card? What if I want to do this programmatically? Let me just do a random. Let's just do nth child 1, okay? Color scheme, dark, okay? I don't know, maybe, oh, hold on. Helps if you write the CSS correctly. So I just want to do the first one. What if I wanted to do, hey, make the even ones dark? Make the odd ones dark, okay? With one line of CSS, either utility class or one line of CSS, you could do this at the template level, container level, page level, obviously the project level, because now you can go in and you can say, at the project level, under color scheme, you could say light only, dark only, normal, or light and dark, okay? So you're able to control this now, like, at the instance level of something, or a group of something, or a whole page or template of something, or the whole project. You control when you're seeing which scheme in different areas. It's really, really, really fantastic and super flexible. And I didn't have to customize anything. I just turned it on. Just, hey, auto scheme, okay? There is granular customization, which I can go into in future videos and documentation and all of that. But for the most part, you're not going to need it. It's just, it works. It just works. Just works. Okay. Maybe go back to chat. Let's see here.
There was still a question about classes. Is the BG class still available, or do we have it as a recipe?
BG. Oh, the is BG class.
The is BG class. Yeah.
So I dabbled with that one as, let me show people what that is, because I think it's still here. I think it's still a utility class. I wanted to remove it, and then I built a bunch of sections as a test, and I was like, no, this has to stay a utility class. So it is sticking around as a utility class, but it's also a recipe. So if you wanted to use the recipe version, let me add that image back and put that in. And let's say that this was, my hero BG, like that. I could say is BG. There you go. So it's either way. The reason it needs to be a utility class is because of this. I'm going to show, because, okay, watch this happen. Someone's calling me. We don't need them. Let's go. I'm going to add a flex div, and I'm going to say BG layers. Okay. And I'm going to put in an image, and then I'm going to put in another div called overlay. Okay. And now BG layers, let's put our image in here. Actually, when I do this with, I think I still am going to need to do it. Okay, so let's do is BG and overlay is BG, okay? And now the overlay can just have like a background color. Okay. Oh, something weird happened there. Okay. And then maybe this needs to be SBG2. There we go. Okay. And this is where you would have your color, like a color mix function. So I can say, hey, I want a color mix here. And I think I'm gonna change this recipe to be transparent by default, because that's like most of the time color mixes is because you want a transparency of some kind. But look how I did ISBG here, ISBG here, ISBG here. And as long as you go in DOM order, it's going to manage the layers for you automatically. But if I used a recipe to do this, I would have a bunch of code duplication. So I would have the code attached to this and this and this. But with the utility class, that code is loaded once. I can use it 3 times, it's loaded once. And that's where I was like, okay, it can't just be a recipe, it has to be a utility class for this particular reason. Because you could literally put in, you could do a background video and then an image that has a transparency and then an overlay on top of that. You could create a bunch of these layers, all using ISBG, and create some really cool stuff. And you would not want that code duplicated over and over and over again. So that stays as a utility class.
All right. A question that was asked a little bit ago. Is there going to be import-export functionality or syncing such that we could make a starter theme for Etch with in-app settings, style sheets, post types, etc.?
Read that
That's
one more
an
time.
interesting question. An import-export functionality or syncing, such as we can create a starter theme or for Etch that has your in-app settings and style sheets and post types. Sounds to me like this is more like a starter website.
Yeah, that's just like a blueprint for a website.
Yeah, a blueprint.
You know? And then you can export the blueprint, obviously. Yeah, but that, I think that just falls into blueprint functionality. Yeah. Automatic CSS, on the other hand, is going to get import-export functionality. We talked about this as, so like you could export just palettes if you wanted to say, hey, this is my palette config. I'm just going to export this and use this somewhere else. And actually have selectable saved options for like themes or whatever that you wanted to do. But then if you wanted to export your typography settings independently, or you wanted to export your spacing settings independently, or your card frameworks, or you could have multiple different card frameworks that load perhaps, like we've talked about all that coming to ACSS as well. So you would have the ability to do granular import exports or global, just tick boxes and say, I want all these as all as one, and import export that way.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, this
go ahead.
Go ahead.
Okay,
oh, it's the same one that I wanted to, highlight.
Good. So what you should do for the most part, okay, and we built some, like, you know, the Etch website is fairly complex from like I mean, we've got custom change logs, custom post types, a bunch of templates with conditional logic. I've got components, I've got loops, I've got like, you know, these features, these are all components and loops and logic, component variations. There's an affiliate portal. There's, I mean, there's a lot going on. There's the account dashboard from SureCart. There's WS Form. There's these pricing tables with, you know, tabs. We've got accordions. We've got modals. We've got all this stuff available, right? So the idea that there's something that you can't do, it's probably very slim. The more likely is you would be able to build it, right? So
to give you more context though, because that is a follow-up to another question that he asked. He says, I have a complex website using Jet Engine, SureCart, Sure Members, and conditions.
Yeah.
And I'm curious about potential migration paths from Bricks to Etch once it becomes more stable for advanced projects.
Yeah, there's no migration path from one builder to another. Yeah. That doesn't really exist anywhere.
Other than just redoing it.
Yeah, you just got to rebuild.
There's no automated one. As someone who has migrated, in quotes, his previous Bricks website to Etch, it does help that you can just take the HTML, paste it into Etch, clean it up, and take some of the styles like that. but it's not an automated process. Maybe eventually, we haven't completely discussed it yet, but we have floated around the idea of figuring out some kind of tooling to help migrate certain websites to Etch, especially because if Etch can take HTML and CSS, pure HTML, pure CSS, it doesn't really matter what tool you use to build it. You could essentially migrate everything, but we don't have that quite in place yet.
Yeah. There's a follow-up that says, what sites would you not build in Etch today? It really comes down to your skill level and your willingness to do some custom work. For example, I would not build a WooCommerce site in Etch. Waji said he totally would, because he's willing to add whatever custom PHP and JavaScript is needed for the cart and the checkout and things like that. Like, he would just build that stuff. So he said he would do it. He would do a WooCommerce site. And he's actually going to do one as a proof of concept. I wouldn't personally do one until we have like elements for those things, right? Hey, give me a cart element, give me a checkout element, give me a this element. I just want to drop them in and I want to move on. I don't want to mess with custom code for that kind of stuff. I just want it to be available for me. So that will be available, but it's not available yet. So, but it comes down to you. That's a you decision, right? What is your skill level? What are you willing to do custom versus not doing custom? Right now, the biggest limitations would be around e-commerce. Now, Jet Engine, we already integrate with that. Metabox, we already integrate with that. ACF, those are not a problem. If you need data out of Jet Engine, I think we still are working on Jet Engine relationships because they use custom database tables. So that's a little bit of a limitation there, but Metabox relationships, ACF relationships, all that stuff works. Pretty much everything related to ACF and Metabox works. You're not gonna have any issues with that. Templating, dynamic data, logic, loops, components, all that stuff. In fact, you're gonna find a lot of stuff in Etch, even though it's in very early days, it's only a year old. Components are better than components that you're gonna see anywhere else. I would put up our conditional logic system against any other conditional logic system. I would put our dynamic data with modifiers up against most others, and then you get all the benefits of stuff that just doesn't exist in any other builder, like HTML access, CSS, the mini GUI, and just the general workflow itself, not having panel inception, having a dynamic canvas, dynamic media queries, dynamic container queries, recipes. The list goes on and on and on and on of the advantages. So I would, if it's not e-commerce, I would tackle any other project that came across my plate for the most part in Etch. Personally, Waji would probably say, well, I'll just do anything. I'll just do everything in Etch. But it depends on the individual person.
Yeah, there are still some limitations that we're working on, but it really does come down to what are you willing to do to get around the limitations and how far do you want to go?
We also have said and made it very clear, the reason it's so good, objectively good, as good as it is today, is because we made a commitment to not sit in a boardroom and go, well, what would be nice to have? Well, what do we think we should do next? What would be cool? We literally said, hey, if you commit to using Etch, we told a bunch of people this. I told Sonny this. I told Mark this. I told a bunch of people, if you commit to using Etch on a real project and you run into a roadblock that's okay, that's an unacceptable roadblock, that becomes our priority list. That is kind of how our priority list has been manufactured and managed, right? Is people being willing to go, yeah, I'm going to build with it, but I want you to have my back. If I run into something that's I'm just stuck, and that's what we told people. So that's kind of how and our own projects. I built the Etch site. The Etch site was a lot of the features came because I was building the Etch site going, hey, I can't do this. Hey, I can't do this. Hey, I can't do this. And then we fixed it. We fixed it. Now we can do it. Okay. That's how this was all managed.
Yeah. And it goes back to, this is a product that is built by people who use the product.
Right.
We are, in technical terms, we're dog fooding ourselves the product. which is why certain features exist and certain features are prioritized before others. Because we, in real projects, see where the limitations are.
Yeah.
Just to add from a little more context, he said, same person asking the original question, it is a vehicle marketplace with custom partner portal and WS forms for front-end ways to add listings, 15 CPTs, custom plugin integration, SEO press, and so on. But e-commerce is just shortcut.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't hear anything in there that's outlandish.
I don't see anything that would be an immediate. Oh no, I'll flag this as you can't do it in Etch.
You should be good to go. Especially if you use SureCart, like if you're talking about if that's the account portal, if you're using SureCart's account portal, and you're using SureCart's checkout form and all that's like just like we do. All those CPTs and all that, none of that is an issue at all. Like that's all light work. That's easy money. Okay, let's see.
So it was let me give you a couple of questions. One that might be quick. Where is it?
What about PHP authoring? So PHP authoring we talked about is going to be prioritized immediately after V1 official. Because there is, what we want to do is we want to implement it. And obviously there's huge security implications when you introduce PHP authoring. We want to do a third-party security audit, probably through PatchStack or similar as soon as that's implemented. And that will cover the entire app as well. So we didn't want to stuff all of that into V1. So right after V1 official is launched, we'll do PHP authoring, and then we'll do the security audit, and then we'll move on from there.
Yeah. Is the official recommendation to replace pages with the custom post types or only posts?
I mean, this gets us back into our whole rant situation again, but about posts in WordPress. So you see my post is blank. I don't use posts. Pages, you do want to try to limit as much as humanly possible, okay? So you see that I have a changelog CPT. I have a comparisons CPT. I have a FAQs CPT. I have a features CPT. I have policies as a CPT. I have my blog posts as a CPT. I have our reviews as a CPT. I have our products and our upsells, okay? And then pages is very limited. Some of which are just duplicates that are actually, just hidden like behind the scenes kind of stuff. So yeah, there's not a replacement for pages. It's just a junk drawer. You have to understand that it's a junk drawer. It has limited functionality versus a post type. And it should be used as sparingly as humanly possible. But I would never say to get rid of it or to never use a page. Does that answer that question?
I think so.
Okay.
When can we expect proper revision history in Etch?
That's another very important thing. And just simple undo redo requires actually a robust history system. So yeah, if you want to talk to that, I mean, we are going to prioritize it very soon.
Yeah. I think it would be great if we had Reinhard on as well. I don't think he's in chat. But yes, that's definitely something that we need to add. I don't think we have any immediate plans, but we'll need to talk about it.
We are slightly backed up by the fact that WordPress has its own revision system, which theoretically works for a lot of what we do. That doesn't help you with undo redo in the builder. But it does help you, I believe, with catastrophic events on pages and posts. Because remember, everything is authored to Gutenberg, right? So there is a native revision system in WordPress for a lot of that. But yeah, we definitely want it. It would probably be something that would show up in one of those polls we talked about running, because the same case you could make for that. Here, at the end of the day, software development is a matter of there's only so many hours in a day and only so many days in a week. And there's a lot of people that can make really good cases for a lot of various things. And you can't say, well, we'll just do all of them at the same time. This is not how it works. So there has to be some sort of prioritization. And sometimes we, as a team, are very clear on, no, we know what's best right now. And then sometimes we're like, I mean, you could really make a good case for any of these things. So in those situations, we go straight to polling and we just say, you guys decide. We couldn't decide, you guys decide. And then it's straight up democracy at that point.
Yeah. Revisions or version control. Well, version control is going to come in some form of version control, meaning probably saving the contents of the database, saving your posts, your pages, your templates, your styles, etc., on the file system so that they can be version controlled with something like Git. Will come eventually. It's on our radar. It is definitely not an immediate priority, though. Definitely not for V1.
Yeah, that was more because that was attached to like the enterprise level plan and doesn't affect everybody. A lot of people don't want to bother with revision systems and or especially Git. You know, we want to get there for sure. It's just it's not a top priority. Now, those things can change. You know, if the number one agency in WordPress comes to us and says, hey, Kevin, we're really considering switching all of our projects over to Etch, but we need Git integration. And I'm looking at a multi-million-dollar agency that's thinking about using Etch, and they tell me that's a priority. I go, damn, let's whip up. Wow, priorities have changed, guys. Guess what? Because that's, massively important, right? It's massively important for adoption. So those kinds of things that's why we always said we're not going to put out a roadmap. Like we'll put out a loose, actually, I would encourage everybody to go here. Current priorities. But it literally says at the top of this page, like this can change week to week. This is not some this will happen in this order. It absolutely could change week to week.
It can and it does.
And it does, and it has, and it will continue to. But these are the UC high priority pattern library. We can actually take this off. Well,
nice.
It's half done. We can leave it there. PHP authoring, Elements API, dynamic elements, facets and filters, loop through external API, history state, shortcut. Like these things people are mentioning, they're written right there. Yes. We know their priorities. It's just it's as much as I want a magic wand, I just haven't been able to find one yet. I keep going into meetings looking for it. It doesn't. I've waved one a few times. It just doesn't work. It doesn't work. So it's just got to be a process.
Yeah, exactly. And the biggest priority that is mentioned at the top of the page is the stability.
Yeah.
Because again, we are using these the Etch on our own websites. We're using it on websites that have some consequence, like the Etch website itself. If that breaks, we don't get sales. That's kind of of important consequence to us as well.
Yeah.
And we've encouraged people more and more to build websites, not just of no or low consequence, but to consider Etch for bigger websites. We don't want you to build websites with Etch and then we break Etch. So now we're very, very conscious of what stability looks like with Etch, what the safety of your data looks like in Etch. So that is absolutely the utmost thing that we are considering.
Yeah.
And that goes through a lot of the things that we are channeling in as engineering culture in Digital Gravy. Things like automated testing, things like a proper CI/CD pipeline, things like proper teamwork and collaboration. We started testing a tool for collaboration recently that helped us, collaborate more frequently and get information out more frequently. That does translate into getting those top priorities quicker.
I would encourage people to go to patterns.etchwp.com. I'm just demonstrating how you can copy and paste starter patterns directly into your site. I actually just did a blog post, our first blog post template. It's a full template, not just a section that you can copy and paste in. You can copy and paste in interactive elements. You can copy our dynamic components like our accordions, our modals, and all that good stuff. You can also see how they all work. Where did the patterns like go? Here we go. So if I go back, for example, and I go to interactive, you can see we have a drawer, right? A drawer component. And you can see everything like responsiveness. You can see all these things live in action right here. And these are copy and pastable right into your Etch. Here's a dialogue. These are all accessible. We're going to have, by the way, a third-party accessibility audit so eventually, right now you copy and paste these in, and they're just like components that we've created using the component functionality in Etch. Like here's a navigation, and here's a greeter, okay? When we have the Elements API, we're going to be baking these in as official elements in Etch. And at that point, we will also get a third-party accessibility audit done on them so that we can stamp them as 1000% fully accessible. But right now, you can access all of these with copy and paste, which is very, very nice. But I was going to show you. So, for example, we copy and paste that in, and then we go back into the block editor, and you see it, right? We did I think a lot of stuff, the point I wanted to make was that if we go back to wherever that documentation was, there we go. I think a lot of this stuff would have, if we had not done block authoring, a lot of this stuff would be done. But, and by the way, remember, we had to do block authoring 3 separate times. So we tried to do it one way, then we tried to do it another way, and we kept running into all these limitations, and then we completely redid it a 3rd time. So we've literally developed auto block authoring 3 separate times. And we're now finally at the reality of one-to-one block authoring. Now, a lot of people think that that's just for simple client editing, and it's actually not. It's actually not. It's extremely important for data liberation, liberating your data out of a visual builder and into core WordPress. It's extremely important for that. More important, the most important thing by far, though, is that block authoring actually completely changes how development is done in WordPress going forwards. In terms of the idea of custom block authoring, where people open up VS Code and build custom blocks, and they read all the custom block documentation, and they're doing stuff in PHP, and they're doing stuff in React, and they're doing all this in a completely separate environment, and then having to test it all in Gutenberg, and they're having 18,000 windows. No, that's all. I think that's all just dead. That's all just done. Like, you shouldn't ever do that anymore. You just open Etch, you just build things, and they're automatically custom blocks. That's just it. And when you build a component, it already has its props exposed, and it's already got the loops and the logic and everything else. Like, it's all just done. It's just done in Etch now. And when level 2, the second half of block authoring comes in, what you have to understand is all of the block themes, all of the block pattern libraries, all of the everything that happens in Gutenberg can actually just now be developed in Etch, because all of that stuff will be sellable, shareable, exportable, whatever, and importable onto websites that don't even have Etch installed. Etch can literally author anything that needs to be done in WordPress, native WordPress, without itself. That's the end goal. That's the end idea. So literally, it is a hostile takeover. I mean, it's hostile because it's me. It's a takeover. It's hostile because it's me. But it's a hostile takeover, I think, of how custom development will just be done in WordPress. Because why would you want to do it any other way? You wouldn't want to. You just open Etch, and then anybody who's even not an Etch user can use what you've built. Like, that's game over, right? That's game over. So, yeah, it's extremely important. Let's just say that it's extremely important. But now these things we're like freed up, because like we're very confident about, other than doing that second half of block authoring, we're very confident that it's where we want it to be, which means we can turn our sights to a lot of these things and really hammer them home fairly quickly after that.
Okay, next question. How to submit bug reports to the Etch team most effectively? Well, your first action should be to post them into community. We want these as many to go to the community because that way they can benefit everybody. There is a form which is currently in the process of being rerouted to our new bug tracking system. It's not quite done yet. That form we usually ask you to fill, especially if you have sensitive information that you can't share publicly. But the first action should be go to the community. There's a help me section. Otherwise, the general section might work as well. Just post in as many details. Now, the important part is please let us know what version of the Etch theme and the Etch plugin are you using. Please let us know the steps to replicate the issue. So exactly how you get the issue. If you get the issue to show up reliably, what are the steps? And then it can be useful to have information about like, what is your browser? What is your stack where you're running this? Sometimes it's useful to know if it's a front-end issue, knowing that you have Safari, gets us in a different direction, or Firefox gets us in a different direction than if it's Chromium-based. If we know that you have very little RAM available on your server, maybe that gets us in a different direction. So that is usually what we ask. And that's also what the form usually asks. So if you can answer that upfront, it's going to be easier for us to try and replicate the issue and then help you out.
Yeah. Does the new command control K search from WP 6.9 work in Etch? So let me go into, we probably need to just talk about this a little bit. Let's go into Etch. So this is a command K bar inside of Etch that I wouldn't go touch it. It's not really like it. We built it a long time ago as a proof of concept, and I don't even know. I mean, it appears to do certain things. It doesn't appear to be as wide as it should be, but
yeah, I don't know that we touched it in a long time.
We haven't touched this in like forever. It was literally like a 3-hour proof of concept thing, and like, okay. But the main point I wanted to bring up, one, we have it. Like this command K, the bar that went wild and viral and blah, blah, blah. It's like it appeared in everywhere at all times, like out of nowhere. Like Basecamp's got one, then this one's got one, then that one's got one. We kind of built an environment where it's mostly obsolete. Like, think about it. Like in WordPress, you really need it because it's so annoying to be like in one area and have to go to a different area. Like because there's all these magic areas, right? Okay, so you want to jump to like content. Like I can just click there and I'm pretty much here. Like here's all the things that I might need. Now maybe I could get to a specific page or poster in a CPT faster if I was like a command K bar expert. There's another thing is that you have to really practice it and learn it. It's like another layer of learning how to do something, right? And what I've found in my general workflows is the minuscule time savings I get in doing these certain things has not really been worth the effort of studying and learning and practicing a command K bar workflow. You know what I'm saying? Now there's some scenarios where it's just so absolutely necessary because it's so painful to like navigate to somewhere. But we've tried to make Etch like to where it's just not that painful to go places and do things. And so you could get there so relatively quick that a command K bar almost feels like it's like, really? Now, if we need one for whatever reason, or people can prove like a super awesome use case for it, we'll continue building it out. But it's there and it's ready to be expanded on and to be polished and to be all these other things. But it has never made it to the priority list because it's just never shown itself to be a top priority. Like it's just, I am never just be like, oh God, I really wish I had the command K bar. I just am never feeling like that. So why would I feel like I need it and need to prioritize it? That's kind of the conclusion. But if anybody has like really compelling, and I would say make a video for me. Make a video and just show me how something is so painful and it is instantly solved by the command K bar, then we'll start to look at it more closely.
Yeah, I think generally speaking, that's like make a compelling case for that why this would be important. And if we haven't considered it before, then we'll definitely consider it. That's definitely important to us. Like, we want to know what your use case is that the current application isn't able to fulfill.
Yeah.
Will Etch support Git? We touched briefly on it before. It won't support Git directly, as in like you run Git commands on an Etch website. It will, what most likely is going to happen is that we are going to be able to save the contents, your pages, your styles, your templates, etc., as files on a directory that you on your own server run Git on. And so you add them, you commit them, you can see the changes, you can diff changes, etc., etc. It won't be soon. It will be much later when we figured out other immediate priorities, unless a lot of people show us why that would be so important that it changes our minds on priorities.
Yeah. BIM is king, but can we get a rename function? Yes. Yeah, you'll be getting a rename function. I mean, essentially, it's see all these my cards right here. I mean, you could already rename classes, obviously. Like, you can just rename them, confirm rename, but you would have to go one by one. But yeah, you'll be able to essentially like find replace in here if you want to. So I would be able to find all instances of my card __ and replace it with whatever I want. Like, that would be ideal, you know? But yes, there's more coming, probably more layers, a little bit more functionality coming to auto BIM eventually as well. But like the ability to include, exclude certain things. I do like that when something is a component, it automatically excludes it from auto BIM. So that's already a nice to have. But yeah, there's some fine tuning that we will bring. What is this can probably be maybe the last question, unless somebody.
I have one that I want to answer as well.
Yeah, go ahead.
What about multi-language support like Translate Press or WPM ML? Is it currently working? I don't know that it's currently working. Multi-language is not something that we have looked at yet. We have discussed what post V1 could look like. And back then, multi-language and better e-commerce support were the two most requested features. We had to postpone those because we needed to have a product that allows you to build a website first. Then we could look at having multilingual websites. But it will come in due time.
Yeah. Yeah, just think about the order of things. If we were like, you can't do components, you can't do loops, you can't do logic, you can't do ecom, you can't do this, you can't do that. But it can be in French.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, it doesn't, who does that really help, you know, at the end of the day? So there's just a bunch of things that have to be done before you can put it in French or German or whatever you want to do, you know?
But to reassure everybody who either operates in a key area where there's multiple languages or just does business with multiple languages, it is definitely on our radar.
Yeah. And it does work to some degree already with like Polylang, I think a bunch of people have been doing it, you know? We just can't guarantee seamlessness and perfection because we haven't like actually dedicated anything to doing that.
I can say I'm fairly confident that you could use Translate Press, because Translate Press, it doesn't create new posts. It literally translates what's already in the database. That has pros and cons, because if you change the original, the original, then the translation gets not just gets out of sync. It gets completely like it doesn't recognize it anymore. But there's a very high chance that Translate Press could already recognize the stuff that you do and let you translate it.
Yeah. So what is the vision? This will be the last one, I guess. Well, there was actually one little thing about rich text and Markdown. It's probably toward the top of the priorities. Another thing that we have to talk about. It's very annoying right now that in order to, I would literally need to, make, paragraphs like this, Okay, so this is, because I'm doing it on the wrong thing. So that's another reason why it's annoying. But come here, do another paragraph, right? Okay. And then if I want to do lists, you know, got to write the HTML for that, yada, yada, yada. It's doable. It's not an enjoyable experience, right? And then people are like, well, we need a rich text element. Rich text elements have tremendous issues, tremendous problems in their own right. But Markdown is fairly great. It's fairly well supported. And so we're probably going to have, if you can imagine this being taken out, so you would have your heading, and then what you would do is you would insert from here a Markdown element. And then that would allow you, it would probably, I can't remember the syntax we talked about. I don't know, just imagine something like this. It's just 2 brackets, but essentially anything inside of here now I can use Markdown for. And I could just go bang, 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 bang down the list doing my normal Markdown syntax, and it just parses it into what needs to happen in terms of HTML. So that will be coming at some point. That's kind of I think our top idea for rich text without the limitations of a rich text editor. So that was to answer that real quick. And then I'll put this one on the screen. What is the vision for SEO and performance settings in Etch? Really, really good question. Obviously, those kinds of things were promised because it's a unified visual development environment. You are supposed to be able to do all of your critical work here. And it's very annoying if I have to do all of my SEO title tags and meta descriptions in WordPress somewhere when I built all the things in Etch. Especially like I should be able to kind of do those things as I'm building, if I build a new page, right? So you see a content hub, you see a media hub, you see a template hub, you see a style manager, you see a loop manager, you will see a performance manager at some point. This is where I will go in and tailor all of the performance aspects of my site. I want to DNQ this bullshit WordPress script and this thing, and kind of like Perf Matters allows you to do. It's just, if you can imagine what a lot of what Perf Matters allows you to do, that would be native inside of Etch. And then we'll have an SEO manager. That will allow you to manage all the global SEO stuff. Yes, generate my sitemap. Yes, here's all my default title tags, whatever, descriptions, blah, 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 blah. And then on top of that, on a page-by-page level, there will be an ability to change the post title for this page, change the description for this page. SEO is not rocket science. Most of the SEO plugins that exist are heavily, heavily, heavily bloated. And all we need are ways to manage sitemaps, title tags, meta descriptions, schema. Okay, there will be probably a schema like builder editor at some point in there. And all the other major aspects of it, not all the cute little, oh, it's got a green light and a red light because it counted my characters and it's that. Now, all that shit's bullshit. That's bull. You either know what you're doing with SEO or you don't. Sorry, we're not going to put in stoplight systems and all this other nonsense, right? We're just going to give you the ability to do your core SEO functionality without needing third-party plugins. Manage all that inside of Etch. And you would be able to go in a content hub, for example, and see, oh, here's my privacy policy. And then, oh, look, title tag column, meta description column, whether that's indexed or not indexed, things like that, things that actually matter, you know? So that's kind of the vision on that. Let me catch up with regular chat. Okay. Yes. Schema would be a part of that. For sure.
There is a question that confuses me a little, so I'm going to ask the person who wrote it if they can clarify. Will ACSS be lock-in free like Etch? In what way is ACSS lock-in?
Yeah.
I mean, if you're using ACSS classes and variables, and then you want to remove.
I think they mean like uninstall
You can
ACSS.
okay, like you can uninstall ACSS, but still have the style sheets that render.
Yeah, I mean, you can do it right now. You've always been able to do it. You want to do it?
Yeah, I mean, you could just copy and paste.
Yeah, you just go get the style sheet and you copy it and you paste it into your project and you uninstall ACSS. But now the dashboard's gone. Your ability to customize it easily is gone. And remember, ACSS is not a vanilla CSS framework. It's a generated framework from Sass. So a lot of what needs to happen happens in SaaS through the dashboard. That's why the dashboard makes it very easy. But if you were to try to, manage it by hand, it's just annoying. It's like, and it's it's like, why? What is the point? Because you come back to a project, is it my project is finished, Kevin? Like, modern websites are never done. Like, they constantly iterate, they constantly change, they constantly evolve, even small little things, tweaks here and there. And you don't want to be in a situation where, I uninstalled ACSS for absolutely no reason. And now I'm in a situation where, and now you can't get it back because you uninstalled it 6 months ago and maybe you changed some things manually to style sheet and now you add it back and those things are gone. Like, what's going on here? What value is there? Other than you're like, well, Kevin, I ran out of license and I'm a cheapskate and I don't want to upgrade my plan. So is that what you're doing? Stop being a cheapskate. Things like that. Just, there's no reason. There's no reason to uninstall Etch. If you want to sell things for non-Etch users, that's one thing. But if you're going to build a site in Etch, like, why would you uninstall Etch from that? It doesn't make any sense. There's no good use case for that. I think for the most part, it's people being cheapskates on licenses, actually.
The only reason that I could vaguely see is somebody who is like a security freak, like really, really into security, who wants to remove any plugin that they're not actively using, but it's just contributing to making the rest of the website work. And if you can remove the plugin and still the website works, I can kind of see it, but it's a very edge case for me.
Okay, I don't
do that.
Yeah, I did a last question, but Dulu.
Oh yeah, I noticed that question.
That's a good one. So we'll finish on this one. I was seeing a chat that came in. Okay, so are you being influenced by any of the popular AI website builders and what might be coming to Etch in regards to AI features? Well, I'll tell you what's not coming is a stream of YouTube videos and X posts about how you can make millions of dollars vibe coding in Etch with no previous. Like, that's my whole X feed is that right now. I want to shoot myself. Like, I'm literally I'm like, can I bulk mute? Like this guy, the latest one I saw was Pinterest doesn't need to exist. I created it in 3 prompts. Look, and I'm like, dude, these people are morons. They're absolute morons. They're the dumbest people on earth. And no, this vibe coding thing has gone off the deep end. It's off the rails. There's zero context to it. We won't be doing any of that. Long story short, we won't be doing any of that. Etch will have AI. It will have very helpful AI. It will have it in 2 or 3 different layers. We won't be lying about it. We won't be hyping it up to extents that are absurd and ridiculous. It will be, get this, it will be the way it's supposed to be, okay? Like everything else in Etch, it's just the way it's supposed to be. That's how it will feel, that's how it will function, and we can all stay sane on planet Earth and not be part of this massive bubble that is about to explode in everybody's face.
Exactly. And if anything, I think what AI tool could influence us isn't really AI website builders as much as AI assisted coding tools like Cursor, for example. Cursor has some really cool stuff when it comes to how the developer interacts with AI. That's probably something that we can take inspiration from, but it's definitely not going to be what you like the AI website builders.
Yeah, here's what I don't like about Cursor. I was just running into this problem the other day. So here's the one mix-in that controls cards, by the way. It's fun. But I just wanted to move a line. I couldn't remember what I was doing. What was I trying to do? I was like just trying to, or maybe it was in the card JSON file. Let me go down here. I can't remember because it's not doing it now, but sometimes it does it. Anyway, I highlighted a row. I just want to highlight a row, and literally like 3 different things came up. It started like trying to write code for me. I'm like, dude, I'm just trying to move it. And then I couldn't tell what I had highlighted because when it tries to write code for you, it like highlights the code. And I was like, oh my God. I was like, let's not do this.
I know what you mean. Yeah.
Let's not make it that sensitive. It's so sensitive sometimes with what it's trying to do for you. And I'm like, dude, you're in my way. Like, get out of my way. So yeah, that was just an example of
that for sure. No, but things like the way agents interact with the developer and they allow you to review the stuff that they did and accept or reject, like individual changes.
Yeah.
That, as an example, I think for interacting with AI is pretty cool.
Yep. Okay, I guess we'll put this one in the books. It's been a good one. We will be back. We do this every single month if you want to check in on the latest. Really, though, what you should be doing is following my videos on my Geary Code channel because you actually see me building stuff. You get the practical, like, step-by-step education and seeing what Etch can actually do in real-world use cases. A lot of people are starting to jump on board now. They like, it's actually amazing how many people think because it's 1.0 beta, they just assume that you can't build sites with it. They just assume that it doesn't have all the functionality it actually has. And we have to get past that assumption. Like, people are like coming in and seeing when they actually watch the channel, they're like, oh shit, like I can legit build like very complex sites with this already. And now they're hyped. Now they're excited. So watch those videos. Like, keep an eye on the videos because if you haven't been watching and you haven't been paying attention, I guarantee you Etch is way further along than you would assume that it is. And it's way better than you would assume that it is. So you need to be, keep a close eye. And I encourage everybody, just go, spend a weekend, build a little test project. Just open your personal website up and rebuild the homepage in Etch and see what you think. Because you're going to be surprised. You're going to be surprised. And then you do that twice, you're going to be hooked. You're going to be hooked. There's no going back. Okay. There's no going back after that. So this one's in the books. I'll see you guys.